Well, today is going to be a very interesting day. As you can tell, we're at the castle. We're going to stack some more ICF out today. But we have some special guests. As you all know, I am not a professional. I just kind of go with the flow and do it as I need to do it. But these guys are the professionals, so we're going to have a good conversation and show you guys some details today. Let's get this started. Well, we're up here on the second level that you guys remember seeing the last video of me and Eric getting 3 courses stacked out to get prepared for the professionals. And the professionals are here today. We're going to talk with MST Bar G2 Building Supplies first. Marty, I am so glad that you came all the way down from the lovely country of Canada.
The lovely country.
Yes. So today we're going to give more of a MST Bar 101, if you will.
Okay.
I've given some description, but as I have told everyone, I am not the professional. He is the professional. So he's going to give you real details today that matter. Floor is yours, sir.
Floor is mine. Start out with MST Bar is available through G2 Building Products in the ICF world across North America. It is a structural bar, grade 3 bar with, if you look really closely, you can see the actual ribs that create bonding into the concrete itself. It's about 40 times more bonding than actual steel, because when you actually put vertical strength on it, it doesn't elongate and pull out. It actually breaks the concrete because this does not elongate.
And I explained that early on because it is one continuous glass fiber from end to end, but it's made up of thousands of continuous glass fibers.
Perfect. You've explained it probably better than I did.
Okay.
When it comes to using ICF in the ICF walls, we're going to have horizontal bars.
Yep, which we can see here.
The horizontal bars are meant for crack control.
This being horizontal.
The vertical bars, when they're inserted, are for the structural element of the wall.
Okay.
When we place the rebar in the wall horizontally, we do a pattern back and forth, and we'll start, in this particular case, we're starting with slot number 2. The next row up at 1 foot levels, we're back to number 1 slot in the bar, or in the web.
Yep.
Number 3 goes back into the number 2 slot.
So his explanation would be 1, 2, 3, or you could also go 1, 2, 3.
Right.
As long as you understand there's 3 slots and you're alternating from slot 1 to 2. To place your vertical rebar in the gap, you want to show them that vertical placement.
So when we drop down in there, it creates a basket weave situation that holds this vertical rebar in the correct plane of the wall when it's poured in concrete.
Whereas if you were 1 and 3, it would still hold it in the center. It would just have more lean to it.
I can actually quickly move this over, and you'll see that you have all that gap.
Yes.
Awesome. Whereas if you actually minimize the slap, you're still in the third of the wall, and it helps hold it. As you go higher in this wall, it'll actually keep it even less tighter. It'll keep it tighter.
And this is an above grade application, which is why we're doing 1 and 2.
Correct. For a 6-inch wall.
Okay.
An 8-inch wall will have more web holders or rebar holders in the web, so you might have 4. Then you use 2 and 3.
Okay.
2 and 3, 2 and 3, and you create the same thing. Horizontal, crack control. Vertical structural element.
All right.
Grade 3 bar, webbed, designed, all kinds of documentation and testing for the structural element of the wall.
Now, if we're not above grade, and let's assume this wall would be backfilled on the outside, this being the inside of the structure, we would want all of our rebar in number 1.
Not quite, no. It would actually, in this case, it's because it's the 6-inch wall, the vertical rebar wants to be on the inside third, so we can sort of make it happen there with the same one. If you have 4, then it would be 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2.
Gotcha.
Because it's only 6 and there's a 6-inch core with 3 holders, we're still going to use 1 and 2, and it's in that spot. We're getting this as close as we can by having it 1 and 2 above grade. So in this particular case with a 6-inch wall, it's literally the same, and this is in the third of the wall that it should be. If you were above, if this was an 8-inch, it would be a number 4th holder.
Yep.
Then this will definitely be
so
held
it'd be
in
4 slots essentially. Right. There'd be another one here.
Yeah, because then you would use 1, 2 on the below grade, and you'd use 2 and 3 above grade, and that would move that over slightly, basically over to the side. It'll be in the center.
So the whole point to the difference of below grade is you want to ensure your vertical and your horizontal is closest to the inside third of your total thickness as you can get it, because you have force on the outside of that wall and no support on the inside.
Sure, they call it the tension side of the wall. This is the tension side. That dirt's trying to blow this concrete this way. the rebar reinforcements on this plane to keep it from blowing in. Above grade, you got somewhat equal. You got roof lift, you got air, windows opening, et cetera, et cetera. So they want the vertical in the middle as close as possible.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Now let's talk about corners.
Corners. When it comes to the MST rebar, we can do you can't bend it on site. So we can do pre-bent corner, have them made up, sent them as part of the package.
Yep.
And you simply put them in place. They're usually 24 inch by 24 inch to give you that 40 times diameter overlap that you need on top of the existing horizontal bar.
Now, do you want your 90s under your horizontal bar or over?
Well, there's really, all the manufacturers have different ways that the webs are holding the actual rebar in place to keep it from bouncing. So, for instance, a good idea I learned this morning, the old guy in the ICF world, is put one over, one under. That way, if that bounces at all, it's not going anywhere.
Right, and what he means by bounce is as concrete is flowing down in here, you can see these little ears on the places that you put your rebar. That keeps the rebar from coming out of here. Not all block has that. Luckily, Superform does. And on this side, the 90 is locked under those tabs, and the horizontal is sitting, but the horizontal is locked here. And on this side, the horizontal is under the 90. So if this 90 was to flop, all it can do is go straight up and down because it's trapped over here.
Great idea, for sure. That's number one on the corners. Number two, because it's a GFRP rebar, MST ribbed, what we've designed was a corner that would have, well, two pieces up above here. Take that, we grab a scrap piece from the side of the job site. So these will overlap. And then we can put about a 6-inch piece on here and zip tie that.
And you'd zip tie it here and here to create this triangle, and the third zip tie being at the horizontal long bar crossover.
And what we've got engineering details to show how strong that actually is, because you're creating that 45-degree corner inside the corner, and it structurally becomes very strong because of the bonding of the product with the concrete.
Okay.
So we have a detail that we can include to anybody that has this with the crossover, and that can be done on the job site.
So good is cross over your horizontals, place a 90. Now, yes, we talked about the alternating locks.
You don't actually cross them over.
Okay.
You go like that, yep.
So you see the 90 or the horizontals don't have to cross over completely, but they come close to each other, and then you throw a 90 on top. That's good.
Yep.
But
better could be this one to make sure it's locked in place.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. That'd be better to make sure the 90 doesn't move.
And then best, based on strength of the corner, would be the crossover with the extra piece put on. The other idea behind this
so essentially you just take this one and zip tie it all together here and run those horizontals longer.
Correct, exactly. Yeah, you run them past each other.
So you'd pull this one over,
Yep.
pull that one over, throw a zip tie here, even with your 90 in place, and then throw this across and throw 2 more zip ties here. And now you have created basically 4 bars making one triangle with the maximum support in a corner.
Right. The whole idea of the crossover, and the reason why we had this officially designed, was that if somebody does not order corners by mistake, they aren't stuck on the job site.
Right, because
So
you have offcuts on every job
offcuts.
site.
You pick them up, you use them, it's a waste factor possibly, and you go ahead and use that.
Because most guys would go, I don't need that, whoop, and just drop it in the wall.
Drop in the wall. This way.
And it makes it disappear and add strength to the concrete. This way you have a usable item that creates more strength in your corners.
Correct. The other option would be, if you have no corners and you don't want to do this, if you've got steel bent over corners from previous jobs, you can mix steel with the MST bar.
Okay.
It's quite possible to stick a steel rebar corner in there that's already bent. The other place where that comes into play is when I do stirrups above windows and door openings for lintels. Sometimes we don't know the exact bend of that stirrup.
Okay.
And because these cannot be bent on site, they need to be factory bent because they're created when it's still malleable. Then the steel, you can bend your own rebar C stirrups or S stirrups, whichever you want to use for your lintels, and mix it with the fiberglass.
I was going to say, let's give them a quick, if this was an opening in the wall and this was your lintel and you have two lintel rebar structures, top and bottom, you then would connect those together with a bent piece of metal that's in the shape of a C, and then your engineering spec would tell you how many of these you need holding those two lintel pieces together.
Correct, and at which spacing they're supposed to be at. There's a detail, and all the ICF manufacturers have their lintel charts.
Yep.
So they'll tell you the opening, and they'll refer to what's called an end distance. So wherever that opening is, that's where the stirrups start. And if it's on 6-inch spacing or 4-inch spacing, and you have to go 18 inches, so if it was 6-inch spacing with 18 inches of end stirrup required, you would have 0, 6, 12, 18. So you'd have 4 stirrups here, 4 stirrups coming in from that side of the opening. The horizontal rebars would have to go 2 feet past each opening,
Okay.
and then you're covered off. So this can be used the same thing. It's the same way as steel rebar, where you create your lintels reinforcement.
So if your entire package was MST bar, but you needed your stirrups, you could have just a few pieces of metal rebar there, and you could bend the metal rebar on site to create your C or your S, depending on which way you're going to attach your MST bar together with those connection points.
100%. We also have people that already know, because they've built the same building already, and they'll call and say, we need 250 stirrups, or we need 100 stirrups, or we keep 14-inch, or we keep 12-inch. They already know those details.
That was my very next question. So you will also make stirrups if you know the specifics to those stirrups.
We can bend to any geometric shape that you need.
Perfect.
Anything as long as we know what it is, we do it very quickly, send it, and have it sent with your order. If quite often when it's done through a distributor situation, they may only have the 90s, but they can call and say, hey, we need 200 of these, or we need 100 of these, whatever it is, or we need a small amount, we need a courier amount, let's get them going. We can do that too.
So you do offer some kitting, is what I'm hearing you say.
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. And obviously you guys prefer semi-loads. However, if you've got multiple stirrups needed for multiple jobs, you can order them all at the same time, and then you would kit that together with the actual straight bar package.
It would come as a package, the same as if I was doing a commercial steel job where I have a cut chart with my details, and it would come all tagged for you.
Perfect.
For instance, we do a lot of bridges, DOT, MOT, depending on which country you're in. It sends out as a package. There's a cut chart, there's shop drawings. We can do all that kind of stuff for the bigger projects, where you have a full bridge, and we have hook bars, we have transverse bars that are all shaped on the ends or whatever has to happen. Sometimes we get U shapes, sometimes we get some really off shapes because the way they're trying to tie back into something. And what's really been interesting for us is on the bridges, one of the biggest comments we get is the consistency of the bends. Because we're making them on a mold, there's no flex back from the steel that you would get when you're making stirrups and what have you. The comments we've got is we supplied number 1 equals number 200 equals number 700 equals 5,000. And they're saying, wow, when we tie these in, we look down the edge of our bridge deck, it's amazing how they're all precise.
So the quality of the bend is better because the dimensions stay more accurate.
More accurate, because they're done with a mold as opposed to being done with a machine where you can have, in the steel, you'll have the bend back possibly.
And you also mentioned strength in some of that description. Let's talk about the strength of MST Bar. Previously on my channel, I did a factory tour of MST Bar, and what we saw was a pull strength, meaning it pulls on this end straight across from that end. So a straight pull.
It was a straight pull in a machine.
Yes, and that was 160,000 PSI.
Right.
I'm not a metric guy, right?
Yeah.
Whereas on metal, it's 80,000 PSI.
Correct.
So pull strength, you have twice, essentially, the strength. What about shear? And I asked that question because right over here, where I have my rebar epoxied into this limestone wall, this is an addition. It's not got 4 corners, but you also have shear on your verticals coming out of your footer and some lean. But what would be the comparison shear strength of this compared to steel?
Steel runs about 34, 35 KSI, and this is about a 33 KSI.
So essentially the same.
Essentially the same, yeah. And what we get into more importantly is flex.
Yes.
The other thing that happens is with a dowel in the footing, you will get the shear strength, but you also get flex. Whereas a steel one, if you bend the steel, it stays there.
Correct.
Whereas this will not bend.
Right. It always wants to get back to straight.
It's going to come back to straight.
Because it's a continuous strand.
Continuous. At the same time, it's still very flexible.
Absolutely.
Right? right?
See, I haven't done that yet. I did, however, slide my forks underneath a concrete pad, and I had about a 4-foot piece of MST bar coming out, and it went bling and sheared that sucker right off. So there's a whole lot of PSI on that rebar.
So along with the 2.5, approximately two times the strength is also the weight. It's a quarter of the weight of a steel bar.
So if a steel bar weighs 10 pounds, this is going to weigh a quarter of that.
2.5 pounds. What's interesting is a 25 pieces of number 4 bar. One person can pick it up and carry it around.
I have proven that, actually. I have grabbed a bundle and just took off walking with it. I could have held it over my head, but I had to come up these steps, so I just drug it behind me, and I guarantee you I would have had some type of a cherry picker or something bringing metal up over top, or it would have been very labor intensive to bring one piece at a time, because you aren't going to grab an entire bundle of steel rebar. It's just not going to happen.
And following up with that is cutting it. So you can cut this with just a regular side grinder with a battery powered, whether it's if you want to use a diamond blade or whether you want to use just a regular cutoff blade, and it cuts through like butter. Literally.
So my preference is a cutoff wheel. I did try a diamond wheel, and it seems like there's a lot more dust from a diamond wheel compared to just your standard run-of-the-mill, buy it in a pack of 40, thin cutoff wheel that you would use for metal. I have found it's very quick, very easy, and I actually cut 150 steaks from my former drain foundation, and I didn't even die with one battery.
And the other situation is if you're going to cut a bundle, use a quick cut or a bigger grinder, but you can cut 25 pieces at once. It takes literally about 30 seconds to cut through them. So if you're doing your vertical bars and you need them, let's say 9'8", they're 20-foot bars, you do your 2 cuts, boom, 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 you bring them up and stack them.
Hey, there's the off-cut for your corners.
There's your off-cut for your corners,
So we used a porta-band yesterday.
The other issue on the weight is if you're up here 11 feet,
and
you're up on your scaffolding eventually, if you take a number 5 bar and you try and get up there one man, trying to get that fed in the top and it's wobbling around like crazy, and you drop it in, a 12-foot number 5 bar one man can handle very easily.
So I've been handling this 4EQ, 20-foot long, putting it in these walls. I just flex it and raise it way up and then let it cradle right down into the wall, and I've been able to do that by myself. So that is definitely proved out, and it is very nice.
The other issue is if you make a mistake with the bar and you come into an opening that you got to redo, if you grind the MST bar, you can grind it with a regular grinder. If that was steel, you got to be careful you don't affect the EPS on the bottom. Yeah, so I'll allude to that a little bit. Back when we were using metal rebar, I forgot to cut in a window and a door. So I was like, well, I'll just go back through and cut it. Well, I got metal rebar in there, and I said, well, I'll just use a side grinder. Well, those sparks actually burnt holes into the EPS that I would then have to foam shut later because it's already a weak point. Right. And now I just made it even more weak because I blew like a 3-inch hole in it because the sparks are so hot. Exactly. Didn't catch on fire, it just melts it. That's right. So fiberglass is definitely better in that application if you forget something. When it comes to the actual engineering, the designs of the walls, the lintels, et cetera, we have all kinds of support behind whoever's selling the bar. And all that just comes from G2 Building Supplies. Right. So you get a hold of us, we take care of that. We make sure you get the right person to be in touch with, whether you're, whatever state you're in, whatever we need to do, seismic, all that. We can help with documentation, engineered stamps to make sure things are covered off and that you're protected by using the bar. Okay, and then conductivity is a big one. Okay. That has laid in the sun for days and days and days and days, and we were here at one time, it was 100 degrees with a 110 degree heat index and the sun was blaring. This does not get hot. No. Because it doesn't get hot and it doesn't get cold, it stays ambient temperature, you can handle it easier. It's not a problem with cold or frost in the mornings. It's not a problem to pour the walls if it's got frost on a steel bar. Sometimes you got to put some heat to it to make sure things are good. And then even with a swimming pool, for instance, you also don't have to ground the rebar in the pool. You still got to ground the rebar, or sorry, you still have to ground the equipment that's running the pool. But grounding of the rebar is not necessary because it doesn't conduct. So Dirt Perfect actually had a home application where they had to ground the rebar for the house because the water table was so high. Correct. So every single metal piece of rebar in the entire 12-foot wall had to be connected or touching,
and had to be connected to a ground rod that went to the ground, whereas with MST Bar, you wouldn't need any grounding whatsoever. Pool application, home that has a high water table, etc., etc. No grounding required.
Not at all, no.
Only electrical equipment.
Only any other equipment on the site that has to be done, yes. It saves you all that worrying about making sure all that steel's connected, make sure it's touching, make sure it's attached to each other so that when you go into that grounding rod, it's protected. You don't have that issue with here. In fact, we have a funny one. We had a bunch of cutoffs from some samples we were making, and a gentleman got them and he used them for his farm to use electric fences.
So he used them as ground rods, essentially, so that the electricity wouldn't flow through the post.
Correct, yep.
Well, they do sell fiberglass fence posts, so why not use them for fiberglass fence posts?
Cutoffs from the job site.
Absolutely. Sure. Free fence post. And you just put the little yellow insulator on it.
There you go.
And you really didn't even need it.
You don't need it, you just wrap it around. Exactly.
Interesting. I love the product, personally. It has made this job for me simpler simply because of the weight difference. And then add to the fact the outliers of not knowing what's around this thing and needing to cut a whole bunch of this. I don't even know if you're aware of this, but I cut stakes about that long. I drove them next to my forma drain, and I drilled 2 holes in the fiberglass rebar to attach screws to the forma drain to use it as a grade stake.
Perfect. It's no different than a steel stake, except you're using up pieces of fiberglass.
And I don't have to take it back out because it's low cost.
It's low cost. It's going to stay there.
Stay there forever.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt a thing.
Right, exactly. When it comes to, we always get questions about demolition, reuse, regrind, or whatever.
Yes.
What's interesting is if I take down a section of an ICF wall or any concrete structure that has rebar in it, I have to separate the concrete from the rebar.
Metal.
Correct.
Yes.
Whereas this can be ground up with the concrete, and you don't know any difference.
Because what do they put in concrete today? Us rednecks call it kitty hair. What is the kitty hair? Fiberglass strands is what they put in concrete to make it stronger and add reinforcement.
So when it comes to recycling and redemo, you grind it up one shot.
Right with the concrete. No big deal. And also, there will be either a live Q&A with the owner of MST Bar. So if you guys put all of your questions that you may have in the comments of this video, and there's already comments from the factory tour of MST Bar, Marty and Borna are going to be involved with either a video or a live that we answer as many questions as we can in the coming months. I'm not sure if that's going to be this month, next month, but we will do a Q&A on MST Bar.
It really helps get the education level raised for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I will tell you, if there's 100 questions, 99 of them are going to be price. We really can't talk about price because it depends on the job site, the amount that you need, the engineering specs to what you need. The easiest answer I've been giving everybody, and tell me if I'm wrong, but essentially just tell yourself metal rebar and fiberglass rebar is 1-to-1 cost. It's really close.
Very, very, very close, yes. And because what tends to happen is geographically, shipping, et cetera, steel is a commodity. It goes up and down.
That's right. It has a ticker symbol, and the market's never the same.
Right. Whereas the glass fiber bar, the resin and the fibers have been about the same. We've had a slight increase maybe 2 years ago, and that's been it. It's been very, very consistent.
So if you want to be able to bid a job based off of a price sheet that might be 2 years old and be close, MST Bar is going to be way closer than going off of a steel bar price that you had used in the past.
100%.
Well, I think that covers most of it, sir.
Awesome.
I greatly appreciate you making this trek.
Hey, awesome being here with you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm sure we will have some more videos on MST Bar. I'm 100% confident of that because I like doing crazy stuff, as you can tell.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, this is your first time seeing the castle. It's pretty wild endeavor.
It's pretty crazy. I still build, so I get excited about MST Bar because even my own crews use it. But to see something like this going on where it's being integrated into an old building to revitalize it is awesome to see.
Kind of going, keep the old but come in with the new.
Come with the new. And what's really cool is when you use ICF, you're using these products with the ICF. When it's all said and done, you won't know the difference.
I agree 1,000%.
100%.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Again, put all of your questions in the comments. I will make sure that MST Bar has that list. We will go over that together, get the answers put together, and either perform a live or a video. So don't hesitate to comment. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And as always, like, comment, subscribe.